Only 29% of Americans express a favorable opinion of the Democratic Party. That's the lowest rating in decades. The Democratic Party, being run as it is right now, has no policy achievements. They have no coherent messaging. They have no credibility with voters, and their candidates suck. And in this episode, I am going to go off on all of it. What are the best reasons for why the Democratic Party is in the worst possible position? Let's talk about it.
Stay back. I have powers. Political powers. It's showtime!
Welcome to Garbage Day on this 11th of December 2025. Garbage Day is the show where I dig into the most garbage events of the day and tell you what I think. I guess that kind of makes me the garbage man, ready to take out the trash. You can also call me the bald dragon, since I'm over here being bald as fuck while spitting out the hot takes of fire. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, then hey, I really appreciate you stopping by. I'm always looking to grow my channel, so for anyone still unfamiliar, let me reiterate the mission statement, and that is, if you're into straight, unbiased commentary where you aren't getting bullshitted by the propaganda machine and their paid shills, stick around. You and I won't agree on everything, but my opinions are my own, and they are sincere. I don't work for anyone but you guys. So, if that kind of message resonates with you, then you're in the right place. It's going to be fun. Because this is a special episode. I'm calling it a midterm election special. Instead of focusing on ultra-specific current events like usual, I'm just going to take an episode to pull back and get a bird's eye view on something that affects all the issues, and that's the motherfucking 2026 midterm elections. Holy damn! We're less than a year out, guys. The primaries will be here in just a few months. It's both awesome and terrifying. I'm pretty sure that for my kind of content, the elections are a really good opportunity to grow my channel. So I think every now and then, I'm gonna just kind of bitch about the midterms and see how my audience reacts to it. So every now and then, boom, it's a midterm election special, like today. And I'll probably use these specials to hammer in on very specific points that relate to how I think these elections are going to shape up, because that's the fun part about elections. The guessing, the analysis, the hypotheticals and theoreticals, the horse race. Damn, I am all about the horse race. All right, enough self-promotion. What's today's topic again? Well, it's pretty easy. The Democratic Party sucks ass. It sucks! It's broken, it's useless, and things need to change. They need to change quickly, or they're in for a repeat of 2024 that borders on wipeout. So if you're a Democrat, maybe hang around and see whether or not you agree. And if you're a Republican, well, you can stick around too. It'll probably be cathartic. Doesn't mean I won't get to you guys. Trust me, I will. I've got plenty of things to say about the GOP. But today, it's about the Democrats, and it sure won't be boring. I can promise you that. So, let's get into it. Let's start with some basic fucking facts. A summary of recent polling from Pew Research Center. These guys are pretty much one of the least biased, most nonpartisan options you can find out there in terms of polling, in my opinion. The Pew Research Center. A summary of their recent polling found that about 3/4 of U.S. adults say the Democratic Party makes them feel frustrated, while roughly half say that it makes them feel angry. Among Democrats themselves, frustration is incredibly high. There's a large share who say that the party is not doing enough to push back against Trump and the GOP, and a lot of those people describe internal leadership as weak or ineffective. The Democratic Party is pretty much at the lowest point it's been since polling became a thing. It's bad. Let's add some context to that. The Democratic Party, their brand, is in the toilet. That's the opinion of just about whomever you get out there and ask. They're unpopular. The brand is burdened by historically weak favorability, widespread voter frustration, and internal disillusionment. When it comes to their own base, it's worse. Even their own voters don't trust the Democratic Party to deliver on an agenda, and they don't believe the party has any kind of a clear path to doing so. And they aren't at all satisfied with the party's response to Trump. Survey results describe the party's direction as divided and aimless. When it comes to specific issues, Democrats still hold a polling advantage on healthcare, but that's basically it. Republicans run the table when it comes to immigration, the economy, and the perception of which party can get things done. And when we pivot to the question of which party cares about the needs of people like me, the two parties are tied. The big picture for Democrats is not a positive one, and here's the main driver of that. Because not only do they seem to be shooting blanks when it comes to the electorate in general, they're also striking out with their own voters. Take those two things away, and what does that leave them with? Nothing. Because you can't win without support from both of those groups if you're a Democrat. And Republicans aren't going to vote for them in significant numbers, so they're dead in the water. There are some bright spots for Democrats, which we'll get to. They're currently running a whopping 14-point lead when it comes to the generic congressional ballot. And there's no doubt that they've had some big wins in November. Nobody's going to deny those. But suffice it to say, the Democratic Party is not in a great position right now. And if these numbers are anything to go by, it's mostly their own fault.
To get anything done, the Democrats feel like they must thread the needle to make sure, we have to make sure each norm follows the overly complex bureaucratic process that we created ourselves. The parliamentarian, I can't do it because the norm says, I can't get anything done. Meanwhile, the Republicans come in and all they have to do is finger bang a donut. That's all they have to do. How are we going to get Matt Gaetz in if the advice and consent? There it is, right there. Boom, boom. There he's in there. There he's in. Look at him, he's in.
But right away, I'm going to point out my number one reason for this. It's the disconnect between national messaging and material outcomes. Here's what that means. One of the more common criticisms you'll hear is that Democrats' policy messaging likes to emphasize ambitious goals without delivering results. This is a critique that is accurate. So let's go down the list. Wage growth, housing affordability, lower drug prices, climate action, affordable health care. If you're part of the Democrats' base, I'm going to ask you, what policy achievements can the Democratic Party point to in the last decade? What have they done for anyone? Nothing. They've given you nothing. Zero. Zilch. These fuckers promise you an umbrella, and then when it rains, they're nowhere to be found. What a surprise. The Democrats have been talking a big game on a lot of issues for years now and haven't done shit. They're too busy working on their Get Trump platform. 4 indictments? 4? I understand their commitment to the cause because this has been their wet dream for almost 10 years, almost a decade. You would think that they have so many other things to get done, things that their voters actually elected them to do, that maybe, just maybe, they could be satisfied with 1 indictment? Just so that they could say they're doing it, then they could put the rest of their energy into things like, economic messaging. Nope. We're going to go with trying to cancel our political adversary. It's never worked. But this time it might, because instead of 1 indictment, there's 4. 4 indictments, mostly based on opportunistic lawfare. You could probably make a solid argument for 1 indictment. I would say, if you're going to indict, pick your strongest case and see what happens. But 4 indictments. Lining up 4 indictments across 4 separate cases against 1 person is the kind of thing you do when you want to destroy something so badly that even the bones are disintegrated into a heaping pile of ash. Not one of the indictments survived, by the way. Trump is a dangerous man who must be stopped at all costs. Democrats have been telling you that and telling you that and telling you that. Why? Because, well, there are legitimate concerns about Trump. But it's also because Democrats can't seem to compete with him on the battlefield of ideas. Trump at least has the good sense to pretend like he gives a fuck about ordinary people. What are Democrats' proposals to make your life easier? What innovations are they talking about? What's their fucking vision? They don't have one. And that's the secret they're so desperate to keep from the people who vote for them over and over again. They've been so busy pointing out why the other guy is evil that they've lost the plot. They only know how to serve wealthy donors because that's what they've been programmed to do. They're like trained seals who bark and clap when they're told to. And donors have been very good at teaching the politicians how this game is played. You do what we tell you, and we'll finance your campaign so that you can keep your cushy job, grow your influence, and then eventually, after you've been in Congress for longer than most people have even been alive, you can retire with millions in net worth. Job well done. But don't rock the boat. Don't you ever actually pass anything that's going to make profound changes to the system we've rigged in our favor, or in any way alter what we can expect from our money. The common people like you and me are practically begging them, raise the minimum wage, set up paid family leave, lower drug prices, reduce the cost of living, do something, anything to make our lives easier and more fair. The people at the top are doing just fine. They don't struggle, but what about us? When's our turn? And the Democrats offer lip service while you vote for them. But when it comes time to actually put these things on the floor to get them done, oh, whoops. It either doesn't happen or it happens so symbolically that there was never a chance of getting anything done. Never. They can put anything on the floor when there's enough Republicans to kill it, knowing that it will never even break out of committee, let alone pass. And then, when nothing happens, they'll turn to their voters and say, see, we tried. The Republicans stopped us. It's not our fault. Or, what happens when Democrats actually manage to make a show vote? It fails. Why? Oh, the parliamentarian said this, or Manchin and Sinema did this. We had to strip the $15 minimum wage provision out of the bill so that it could pass, and we needed to pass because corporations need tax breaks or some fucking shit. Maybe next time. We've got all these things working against us, so it's not our fault, but at least we're not Trump, right? They're not going to fight for any of the priorities they claim to be for because they're not for them. Not really. Those things don't serve their primary constituency. They don't serve their donors. They serve you. And if it's between ordinary voters and big money donors, the Democrats are going to betray you every single time. They've done it. They have a flawless record of doing it. And as long as this pyramid scheme is allowed to go on, they'll keep making the same false promises until the party is voted into irrelevancy. If they knew anything about messaging, maybe legislative achievements wouldn't take years to produce. Maybe it wouldn't get whittled down to almost nothing. Maybe it wouldn't be decided by the difference of the head of a pin, because you'd have the people behind you. And when you can demonstrate that there's momentum in the electorate, you can take it to Congress with the intent to pass something. Stop watering it down with negotiation. The Republicans aren't doing you any favors, and they shouldn't. They have their own priorities. You have to prove to them that voting against things that will make ordinary people's lives better is not in their best interests. And then you can come together and decide on specifics. You can get something done. Democrats don't want to get anything done, and they don't seem interested in learning. So nothing gets done. What a shock. When I look at the Democratic Party, I see an organization led by old-ass white dudes that is reactive, procedural, and cautious. They're fucking weak. So weak. And you don't have to take my word for it. Check out any of the recent polling, any of it since Trump was reelected. Voters are frustrated with Democrats, overwhelmingly frustrated. Even the Democrats' own base doesn't like them because they have no spine. I don't want to vote for a jellyfish. I want to vote for someone who tells me, here's what we're going to do for you, and here's how we're going to do it. And come hell or high water, we are going to get the shit done. Say what you want about the Republicans and Trump's GOP, but at least they're telling you what their plans are. Every damn day they're telling you their agenda, and every day they're pushing that boulder a few inches up the hill. Republicans are remaking this country in ways that Democrats claim to be against. But it's not like they're pushing any kind of alternative up the hill. A Democrat walks around the hill. He gets to the other side with no effort, nothing to show for it. And then he holds out his hand and says, gimme, gimme, gimme. Gimme votes, gimme money. Let me tell you, I know a lot of voters, a lot of Democratic voters who were so inundated with texts and emails and requests for campaign contributions right after Kamala Harris lost the 2024 election. The election was over. Democrats lost. They lost badly, and they knew it. And yet, weeks later, voters were still getting hit with, hey, we know you're feeling destitute about the election, but you got any money? Because we're still going to need money. I swear to you, it's a sickness with the Democrats. I'm not saying that Republicans aren't just as bad. They'll fundraise off anything. Anything. But goddamn Democrats, read the room. Asking for grassroots contributions, hey, great, good job. But asking for grassroots contributions right after your second loss to Trump in an election you pretty much billed as deciding the future of humanity for the next 100 fucking years? Yeah, I don't think so. Do something to earn that money back, you fucking losers. There's a huge gap between Democratic Party rhetoric and real, measurable outcomes that is generating a sense of unmet expectations. That sense has been there for a long fucking time. But now, it's a feeling you have among working class voters, young voters, lower income voters. These are key Democratic Party constituencies that used the 2024 election to give Democrats a big middle finger. And now Democrats have to stop the bleeding, or pretty soon they're going to find themselves in a deep freeze where they're without power for about 20 or 30 years. I'm not fucking kidding. They have a chance to take back some of these voters from the GOP, but that window is shrinking. And so far, all I've seen them do is piss on the opportunity.
Another thing Republicans need to think about is what's happening to their coalition. They came out of the 2024 elections thinking that they had made big strides toward an important goal. Rather than being a party that relies solely on the white working class, they made strides in becoming the party that has a multiracial, multi-ethnic working class constituency, because Latino voters, black voters, and other minority voters, as well as young voters, shifted remarkably toward the Republican Party last year. Well, today we're learning that that trend seems to have not only abated, but reversed. We see Latino voters and black voters shifting back to the Democratic Party compared to where they were just a year ago.
Which brings me to my second reason for why the current incarnation of the Democratic Party is ass. Their over-reliance on elite, urban, and highly educated coalitions of voters. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're building a coalition, you do need buy-in from all of those groups. But now you're doing it at the expense of other groups. The party seems so intent on keeping control of their most reliable voting blocks that it's cannibalizing itself at the same time. The Democratic Party right now is relying so heavily on college-educated and suburban voters that they're losing ground with everyone else. And most importantly, working-class voters across all racial groups. Politics is about addition, not subtraction. That's not new. If you're a candidate, if you're the party, you want as many people voting for you as you can earn. But you have to balance the needs of your varying constituent groups to get the most gain for the least cost, which you do with a broad platform rather than a narrow one. Meaning, you can't appeal to one specific group in a way where it's going to alienate 3 or 4 others. And Democrats, for a while now, have been so good at moon speak that even people who used to understand them are starting to walk away. The cultural appeal of the Democratic Party is the narrowest it has ever been. The perception that Democrats are disconnected from everyday economic realities is a direct consequence of being disconnected from larger and larger groups of everyday people. Let me tell you something. If you're only just starting to pay attention to politics, like if you're a really young guy that's about to hit voting age where you're starting to become aware of this stuff, or maybe you're someone who has never voted for Democrats, or you just don't vote at all, you might be shocked to learn that it's actually the Democratic Party that was traditionally considered to be the party of the blue-collar working class. It wasn't so long ago. The party of workers' rights, of fair wages, of unions, these were all priorities of the Democratic Party. But when's the last time you saw an elected Democrat talk about any of those things in a serious way, besides fringe candidates like Bernie Sanders? I won't say that absolutely no one is discussing them, but those ideas don't seem to dwell within the party lexicon anymore. Helping the everyday American isn't the beating heart of the party anymore. Now, the Democratic Party is controlled by elitists who want to make sure you're living in a way that's politically correct and socially acceptable. The core Democratic Party voter is urban, liberal, and female. That's fine. You can be those things. You need all of those things in a successful Democratic Party coalition. But when the prevailing attitude is to focus everything on identity politics rather than economics, you begin isolating segments of the population who might otherwise vote for you with the right platform. And I know what some of you are already thinking. It's the Republicans who are making everything a culture war issue. But they're doing it because Democrats are making it so easy for them. The Democratic Party has moved so far left on specific issues that for Republicans, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It works like this. The Republican Party goes window shopping for the most culturally sensitive issues they can find. Then they attack the most extreme liberal position you can possibly take on that issue because they want undecided voters to think that position is the Democratic Party's position. And sure enough, Democrats line up like they have an appointment with the firing squad to defend it. That's the trap. The Republicans go, see, look how fucking batshit crazy they are. It's a trap. It's so obviously a trap. They've done it again and again, and Democrats just keep falling for it. I'm talking about issues on which reasonable people could otherwise agree. They become perverted by the process of baiting Democrats to declare their support for things that most voters do not agree with. Do trans individuals have the same rights as the rest of us? Of course they do. Damn fucking right they do. They're entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of their own happiness on their own terms, and harassing them strictly over their gender identity is not American. But when the same issue becomes about taxpayer-funded gender-affirming care, or biological males and female spaces, then it gets a little complicated. Now we're moving away from fundamental human rights and getting into special rights for protected classes. And instead of searching for some kind of middle ground, Democrats put their flag into the most unpopular aspects of generally popular policies and say, this is the hill I'll die on. Every time. Every time. The modern Democratic Party has given the impression, and it's not an unfounded one, that it knows better than you about everything. They live in this tiny little space where their core voting constituencies and media allies keep telling them that they're right, while the rest of the country seems to think they're wrong. Not on every single issue, but on enough of them where it counts against them come election time. And when they go out of their way to push these ideas on unwilling segments of the electorate, mind you, segments who may otherwise find some of the economic drivers within the platform appealing, they're surprised when they get rejected in favor of a Republican who seems closer to normal than they are, even when Republicans are pursuing extreme policies of their own. When Democrats are made to look like the worst option on cultural issues that hit really close to home, the average voter won't care. They won't care so much that their Republican counterparts talk about what programs they can cut from the next budget, even when those programs are important and vital. And then, guess what? They'll cut those programs. And then you'll have lost on both fronts. Congratulations. Congratulations. There are areas in which the Democratic Party is going to have to moderate if they want to be successful. They're not alone. I'd argue the same exact thing for the Republicans. But Democrats are the ones who haven't caught on to the new rules of the game. The Republican Party has changed, for better or worse. They're more populist, more working class, and a lot more aggressive. The Democrats still think it's 2008. They don't seem to know what time it is. When you cede space to the populist messaging from your opponents in favor of pandering to niche ideas that don't have broad support, you're going to lose. That's just how it is. So, the third problem I've identified is that Democrats have a very weak national narrative with inconsistent branding. And what I mean by that is this. How hard is it to provide a clear, cohesive story about what the party stands for, why its policies matter, and how its solutions will materially improve people's lives? Seriously. Well, apparently it's very hard because Democrats refuse to do it. I don't know what the fuck the Democratic Party stands for right now. I don't know who the leaders are. I don't know what the party is fighting for. I don't know why I should give a damn. And if enough voters are having the same difficulties I am, then the Democratic Party has a huge problem. Instead of a unified narrative, what kind of message have they been putting out? It depends who you ask, right? Because Democrats tend to have a very broad, diverse coalition with a lot of factions that are pieced together from different zones of the party spectrum. You have unabashed progressives like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You have centrists, you have moderates. Every faction has its own priorities and a different idea of what the Democratic Party should be. So what you don't have is a single forceful message. Not even when it comes to Trump. I mean, fuck, look at John Fetterman. He has a more complex relationship with Trump than just about anybody in his party. There's not a united front on any of the issues. Not really. Republicans aren't quite as homogeneous as they used to be either. But they still have more of a shared cultural identity than the Democrats do. And they're mostly subservient to Trump, so that tends to keep everyone in line. Unless you're like Marjorie Taylor Greene and just decide to leave. It helps them that they can kind of rally around a single villain of Democrats. Because the Republicans, they campaign more on emotion than policy. Democrats are more like policy wonks. Midterm elections don't typically pull in the same numbers of a presidential contest, so midterms usually end up being about base turnout. I get the emotional tack. It makes sense. The other thing that Democrats are lacking in terms of a message is a single dominant media ecosystem like the Republicans have. Republicans benefit from this large, centralized, highly disciplined media structure that's able to coordinate and consolidate narratives quickly. You have cable news like Fox, OAN, Newsmax. You have talk radio, which has been around for ages. Now you also have the podcasters and the YouTubers. You have Elon Musk and X, and you have Trump himself. There's always Trump and the Bully Pulpit and Truth Social. They're all there to say the same thing come election time. Democrats still have a lot of the legacy media, but it's been fractured and weakened. And there's not really any centralized message amplifier the way there is with the Republican echo chamber. Even the media Democrats do have tends to encourage debate rather than promote unity. Well, except when it comes to Trump. Media allies of the Democratic Party are all anti-Trump. That's where their bread comes from. Messaging for Democrats is more about coalition management. There's no kind of, top-down messaging discipline like there is with the Republicans right now, where the message is whatever the fuck Trump says it is. I think this works against Democrats so far as the midterms go. They're nowhere close to choosing a party leader, and they still won't have one when the midterms roll around. It's right after the midterms that the starting gun goes off for 2028. Meanwhile, Trump's chief of staff, what's her name? What's her name again? Susie Wiles? Susie Wiles. She says that they're going to put Trump on the ballot by emphasizing his presence and what the midterms mean for the future of his administration. I guess he's going to do rallies like it's a presidential election year. If Trump can keep it together on the trail and the economy starts improving, then I think the Democrats' disunity, so far as messaging goes, is going to work against them in a big way. The unity thing is something that they can fix now. They should fix it now, but they won't fix it now because they're so discombobulated every time Trump sneezes that nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. If I were in charge of the Democratic Party right now, I would put economics and affordability front and center. Costs, prices, household finances. Know how I know? Because that's the kind of messaging that was at the center of their big wins in November. Look at Virginia, New Jersey, New York City. Nobody knew who Zoran Mamdani was a year ago. Now he's going to be the mayor of New York City. Because in New York City, the average rent is between $3,000 and $4,000. Food prices are up, gas is up. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world, and that's what he ran on fixing. Healthcare premiums are going to double if Congress can't come up with a solution very quickly. People all across the country are about to feel even more economic pain. Let Trump run on his golden age bullshit and the deportations or whatever it is they come up with. If the reality on the ground in 3 months, 6 months is that people have lost their health care, they can't afford to eat out, there's no homes to buy, they can't afford their rent, this isn't exactly a hot take. It's simple physics. If the economy goes up, then the Republican chances of holding their congressional majorities also go up. If the economy flatlines or doesn't at least marginally improve where people can feel the difference, then I don't care how many seats they manage to pick up through redistricting. I'm just not seeing it. Angry voters are motivated voters, and whoever gets blamed for a bad economy is the party that's going to be out on the fucking street. But hey, we're all going to get to find out if I'm right.
Hello, I'm Hank Hill from TV's King of the Hill.
And I'm Bobby Hill from TV's King of the Hill.
Welcome to what used to be my garage.
That's where I usually park my bike.
We're here to remind you to register to vote. So go ahead, fill out your registration card, and you'll be eligible to win these valuable prizes: freedom, civic pride, and a brand new president.
So, next I'm going to bring up probably the most frightening problem Democrats are facing. And it's one of their own making. We're talking about the chronic underinvestment in local and state level elections. Maybe you didn't know, but the Republicans have been playing the long game when it comes to what's local, and it's translating to national victories. They are laser focused on state legislatures, school boards, judicial appointments, voter registration, and long-term grassroots infrastructure, and they are doing a really excellent job of it. Why is that important to point out? Because local is what shapes policy on super important things like voting laws, districting, education, and reproductive rights. And all of those things are going to influence elections at the national level. These guys are on the ground in every local election. They're sending in the stormtroopers, the detailed party platforms, and lots of funding. To be fair, Democrats have been losing ground in these local arenas for years. They're too focused on the national races, and for whatever reason, they aren't willing to delve deeply into the small races, or to spend heavily on states and races they view as lost causes. The state party has atrophied in states where they used to be competitive, and even some where they still are. That's a red flag, because now Republicans are really in a position to exploit the problem. And that's the difference that has been emerging between Democrats and Republicans in this space. Republicans have been working for ages to flip regions and territories that weren't always receptive to their message, whether they expect to win in those places or not. And it's starting to pay off. The country as a whole shifted to the right in 2024, and we're seeing it reflected in voter registration at the state level. In Nevada, registered Republicans outnumber Democrats for the first time in 2 decades. The Democrats are losing ground in places like Arizona and Pennsylvania, and they literally cannot win the presidency without them. Don't even get me started on Florida, because Republicans now outnumber Democrats in Hillsborough County, and they flipped big fat Miami-Dade County red for the first time ever earlier this year. Ron DeSantis likens Florida's Democratic Party to a rotting corpse on the side of the road, and with those kinds of numbers, he isn't wrong. Did anyone have New Jersey on their bingo card? I know I didn't, but Republicans have made huge gains there last year, and they're capitalizing on it this year with tens of thousands of new voter registrations. The GOP is rising in all of these states and more, and that's because of dedicated voter outreach, fueled by passionate volunteers and backed by national spending. Democrats are going to have to do something they seem to loathe doing, and that's to admit where they fucked up and start investing money back into places where they probably have no chance of winning for at least several cycles. Yeah, I'm talking about places like Florida, places that used to be swing states. They need to invest in party infrastructure and think long term. Get on the ground, talk to voters, hear them out. Offer real solutions and build coalitions. They've got to put down roots and stick around the way Republicans have done. It's called politicking. Because what I've noticed with Democrats is they spend heavy in the places they think they should win, not enough in places they expect to win, and almost nothing in areas they've given up on, when instead the strategy should be somewhat inverted. You have to spend in states where you have nothing, because if you never do, then you will always have nothing. You have to spend big. We have to break this weird little paradigm of every presidential election being decided by a small handful of swing states. And the Republicans are already working on that in a big way. Democrats are already behind, and if they don't move on this, they're gonna get left in the dust when blue strongholds like New Jersey start flipping. Think it can happen? Oh, hey, have it your way. Remember when Florida was a swing state? I do. And you'll never make it swing again unless you're on the ground, selling your ideas and smashing voter registration records. It's probably going to be a long time before you see any traction. It might take a generation or two. You just got to keep taking bites out of that shit sandwich until it's gone. There's no other way around it. The Democratic Party is in a deep hole that's only getting deeper, and the longer they sit there and pretend hating Trump is going to solve all their electoral problems, the harder it will be to undo the damage of having let your state-level processes become the electoral equivalent of dusty cobwebs. Even the dead flies are mummified husks by now. Let's take a look at the bigger numbers. Between 2020 and 2024, Republicans gained about 2.4 million registered voters, while Democrats lost about 2.1 million. Democrats still lead in total national registrations, but if you're a Democrat, these numbers should scare the hell out of you. The largest and fastest growing segment of the electorate is, I think, still independents. More people identify as nonpartisan than ever before, and it's not hard to see why. But those are swing voters. You still want as many active voters in your own party as possible. The entire country had that rightward shift in the 2024 election, and it's definitely helping Republicans juice their numbers. It's also really important to point out that registration shifts in and of themselves aren't going to guarantee election outcomes. So just because Republicans are gaining in registrations doesn't mean that every single one of those people will vote Republican or even vote at all. But it sure doesn't hurt to have more of your guys than the other guys. And if a person is motivated enough to switch his party affiliation, or if he's a new voter choosing his affiliation for the first time, he's probably going to vote his party affiliation in the next election, in the fucking 2026 midterms. Between the surge in Republican Party registration and the increase in unaffiliated voters, we're going to be looking at a lot of elections where the outcome will be very fluid. So don't just look at how many Republicans and Democrats there are, because that's not your only indicator. Things like turnout, candidate appeal, and local issues can matter way more than party loyalties. It depends on the race. But you can't deny that the registration numbers are very good for Republicans. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the Democratic Party to re-engage and rebuild registration and turnout efforts. And if they're smart, they'll throw themselves into it head first with everything they have. They've lost millions of registered voters over just 4 years. But that doesn't mean they can't turn it around if they adapt. One of the things I do want to pay very close attention to once the midterms are over is whether the registration gains hold or reverse. Republicans might hold them, but it's also possible that they fail to convert some or all of these new registrants into active voters, or that there's a shift in voter sentiment because things don't seem to be getting better for enough people. Voters can be pretty fickle, and that's kind of the point. The answer we get there will be one of our first signs about 2028.
You have to brand yourself as a success, and you will be a success. On the economy, it's not like there's nothing bad happening in the economy. Of course, there's still the war on the middle class. You have the poor are still obviously struggling. You have unionization rates at all-time lows. You have higher-paying jobs replaced with lower-paying jobs post the crash. But you can come out there and say unemployment was 10%, now it's 5.9%. Thank the Democrats for that. Hey, the deficit was up, now the deficit is down. Thank the Democrats for that. Hey, the stock market is doing fantastic. Remember what it was when that asshole Bush was in power? Talk about how you improved stuff.
The fifth reason why the Democratic Party sucks is its inability to translate popular policy initiatives into perceived successes. You might be shocked to hear this, but there are quite a few Democratic policy positions that poll really well nationally. Most people do approve of expanded healthcare coverage. The Affordable Care Act is polling at 57% as of December. A solid 63% of registered voters say abortion should be legal in all or most cases. An increase in the federal minimum wage to $25 an hour has broad bipartisan support. And climate investments are popular when utilized properly and effectively. It turns out that policies aimed at creating substantial improvement in people's lives are actually something voters really believe in. But the Democratic Party sucks at communicating ideas like these. And even when they don't, they tend to sabotage their initiatives at every turn for reasons we've already discussed. You can always count on the Democrats to do the Republican Party's dirty work for them by selling short their own ideas, ignoring voter surveys that show support for them, and blaming the ghost of Capitol Hill for whatever fuckery ends up keeping meaningful legislative items from being put on the floor. They can't seem to brand legislation in a memorable way that generates momentum, and they're never able to defend its finer points against misinformation from the opposition. The result is that even when the party does achieve any kind of tangible policy gains, voters don't associate those improvements with Democratic action, which, to be honest, is so rare that voters probably don't know how to recognize it. I have something of a working solution for this, and it's not complicated. The Democrats should make their policy proposals concrete rather than abstract. Make them feel real instead of theoretical. So, instead of just talking about expanded healthcare coverage in general terms, the obvious alternative is to explain who it benefits and how. An increase in the federal minimum wage isn't just for everyone. It's a means to address challenges for people living at or near the poverty line. Reproductive rights help ensure that a 14-year-old victim of incest doesn't have to carry that baby to term, and so on. Have you ever noticed that when the Democrats put together a policy proposal, they tend to mention it briefly in broad terms and then let it marinate in the public consciousness, while the Republicans then spend weeks and months dissecting and destroying it from every possible angle until we're not even sure what's true and what isn't? They put more effort into tearing apart the proposal than the Democrats do in selling it. If you're going to let the Republicans define your ideas for you before you've even explained them yourself, then you need a different job. Your constituents want you to set clear goals, define terms, and produce results. And here's another thing. The average person's attention span is short. The guts of any policy proposal should be heavily detailed, but so far as communicating the benefits to voters, it should be simple, straightforward, and to the point. No one outside the Beltway is going to read your carefully choreographed list of items when it all just blurs together anyway. Constituents can dig into the details on their own if they really want them. Otherwise, whatever policy you're putting forward should be one clear, concise idea that pushes out an understandable, relatable message for how it's going to help them. A fact sheet of legislative terms is not accessible language. Telling voters what the fuck your policy is designed to do is, and that's what's going to help build momentum for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
So get it out of your heads, Democrats, that you're a viable party if you keep running corporate Democrats like this. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, you guys are fucking losers. I ain't going to vote for you. I ain't going to work for you. I'm going to start another party. If that's who you think's going to lead this party and get the progressives back in power, you're out of your mind. You're doubling down on a bad strategy, just like all the people who are doing, just like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and all the other people in the Democratic Party who are doing the autopsy on what happened, and their autopsy is, we didn't do nothing wrong. There's too many racists in America. I saw Al Jazeera do a thing like that today. There's too many racists. It had nothing to do with economics. Have you seen that, Steve? They're literally saying now it has nothing to do with economics because the people who voted for Trump come from counties that were doing better. Stick your head in the sand all you want. There's got to be a reason for the Democrats to exist. And the reason the Democrats are supposed to exist is to be an opposition party to the Republicans. If you're in bed with the same people, taking money from the same people, you're no longer an opposition party. There's no reason for you to exist. And guess what? Don't be surprised if people don't vote for you.
I'm closing with the big one. The one that everyone already knows, but that has to be said. Reason number 6. The Democratic Party has, for some time now, been choosing candidates who do not align with the populist moment we have been living in since at least the Tea Party movement. In every race, at every level, failures all. And if they continue to pick mismatched personalities, they will get mismatched results. That includes 2026. That includes 2028. I don't mean that individual candidates themselves are bad. Not every candidate is necessarily good, but I'm sure they all mean well and honestly believe in what they offer. The problem is that what the Democrats have been offering lately really ain't shit. You can say a lot about Trump. I can say a lot about Trump. What are some of the ways we can describe President Donald Trump? If you're instinctually critical of him, then that's easy. He's unhinged, authoritarian, and wields a destructive influence. But you have to stop and think. How did he get to where he is today? Why was he elected president? Because he's also charismatic, energetic, and funny. He's spontaneous, he's authentic, and he has uncanny political instincts that serve him well in the cutthroat world of politics. People genuinely seem to like him. I know that's hard for almost anyone on the left to fathom, but it's true. And I'm not talking about the hardcore MAGA bros who are out there screaming about stolen elections and mass deportations. I mean ordinary people who voted for Trump, perhaps more so the first time than the second time, people who voted for Trump because he has qualities they enjoy or admire. These people exist. They're real. And they're why the Democratic Party seems to suck at winning elections against a man who, at least on paper, is eminently beatable. And that is a problem the Democrats are going to have to solve if Trump really is hitting the trail in an off-cycle election, as we're being made to believe. So, first we have candidates that come from the establishment. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. 2016 was a year defined by anti-establishment energy on both sides. Donald Trump on the right, Bernie Sanders on the left. So naturally, the Democratic establishment pushed for Hillary Clinton, of all people, probably the most establishment candidate they could have run anywhere inside the next 200 years. She was the most qualified candidate in the history of presidential politics, one who emphasized expertise, stability, and above all, unconditional surrender of worship to the great immovable status quo. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Her campaign was about projecting competence and continuity in an election where voters were unhappy with business as usual and wanted to blow up the system. Donald Trump represented that chance, so they took it. Simple as that. I'm not here to bash on Hillary Clinton for how practiced and polished her responses were, how inaccessible she was to the press, or the institutional distrust and baggage she was saddled with before she even declared. A great candidate can overcome just about anything. But in an outsider election cycle whose mood clearly centered on disruption and anger, she was clearly not it. The Democratic Party failed to read the room, and the room told them to fuck right off. Then we have candidates who are technocrats. Example, Pete Buttigieg. I want to say up front that I actually like Buttigieg as a person. I like his youth and energy. I like his self-confidence. I like the calm, almost zen quality he puts out. I thought he was pretty impressive in 2020. It's why I'm so sure that Pete Buttigieg is a phenomenal communicator who, if he runs in 2028, will be tragically mismatched for what I think the electorate has become. This guy is extremely smart and talented, but he projects technocratic, consulted energy messaging. Like if he had been generated by the conglomeration of several hundred patiently distilled focus groups. He's a policy wonk who leans on nuance rather than the visceral economic hunger for change that voters have been pushing for. He's sincere, but he's also very elite-coded. Upscale, college-educated liberals really caught on to his political branding, but it doesn't resonate so well with voters seeking a crusading, combative populist voice. And that's the kind of candidates that voters on both sides are looking for right now. Then there's the party insiders. Anybody remember Terry McAuliffe? Former DNC chair, fundraiser, Clinton world guy. He ran for governor of Virginia. The Democrats' attitude in that race was, we'll win in the end because we always do. It's a blue state. Well, guess what? No, you didn't. Because the guy you ran was a lifelong Democratic operative who was already governor before, elected in a very different world in the distant before time of 2014. He didn't have any ideas to run on other than bashing Trump and trying his damnedest to tie Glenn Youngkin to him. Youngkin won by, 3 points? And after a year of COVID, with its seismic cultural and economic changes, a year where parents were boiling with rage over forced virtual learning, and the latest Republican manufactured crisis of critical race theory, the consummate Washington insider ran on what Washington insiders always seem to run on: a return to normal. Nail, meat, coffin. I won't even get into the part where he told parents how to school their kids. Finally, there's the candidates who attempt a populist tone, but don't quite pull it off. They don't know how to internalize it, so they half-ass the attempt. Tim Ryan is that guy. Ryan dropped out of his safe house seat to run for Senate in Ohio. I give the guy a lot of credit. He was at least self-aware. He knew that Ohio had run screaming to the MAGA right in recent years, so he did his best to fake that energy. But there's a difference between the moderate economic populism he was going for and the emotional, grievance-driven populism embodied in his opponent, J.D. Vance. When people are angry, truly angry, and the electorate is in turmoil, if the guy next to you is seizing on that energy in a very real and authentic way, you need to either shit or get off the pot. Ohio was probably lost from the start, but if it had been Sherrod Brown that year, I think the Democrats would have had a much better chance. Whatever electoral drugs Trump and his cohorts are selling, we know one thing. They can't be replaced by the generic versions represented by folks like Ryan. Democrats are going to have to rebuild their own populism from scratch. I could go on forever about specific candidates, but I think you see the theme here. The Democratic Party keeps picking candidates who don't know how to run in this environment. They're still living in Obama land, where golden oratory could move mountains of voters through sheer inspiration. This is not where the country is anymore. America looks a lot more like Trump. It talks like Trump. It acts like Trump. And if Democrats are ever going to take it back from Trump, they're going to have to come up with something that distracts from what Trump is selling. The only way to do that is to offer something better. I think I'm going to call it a wrap for today. I don't know what the runtime is, but if you stuck around to the end, thank you. I appreciate it. And if you value the content, then please do me a huge favor by hitting that subscribe button. In the meantime, indulge me. Tell me what you think of this analysis. Do you agree or are you opposed? What's your opinion on what Democrats should be doing to fix the problem? Because hey, the 2026 midterms will be here before you know it, and they're running out of time. This has been Garbage Day for the 11th of December 2025. I'll see you next time. Stay vigilant, stay salty, and take care of yourselves. Good day.